at 155 right now, right? We're told to view Conor versus Cowboy as a 155-pound match. We're literally told to view that match as two 55-pounders who are fighting at 155, but with the time of year, they decided to not cut weight. Then we've got the world title fight going on between Khabib and Tony, which comes with its own amounts of drama because it's time number 5. It's been scratched 4 times. It's time number 5. There's a lot going on within that weight class. Where does Kevin Lee fit into all this? Well, here's what's going on that I don't want to be a boat that Kevin misses, okay? Kevin is taking very hard fight. Here's what you have to understand about Kevin Lee. First off, the guy's a star. He's fought in a number of main events, a number of co-main events. He's fought for world championships. People stop what they're doing to hear Kevin's interviews, to watch him weigh in, to see what he's going to wear to a press conference. I mean, right? If you have that kind of stroke, you have that kind of interest in people, you're a star. Kevin Lee's a star. Back up a little bit. He's coming off a loss. He accepts a fight at Madison Square Garden with Gregor Gillespie. Now, Gregor Gillespie wasn't very well known. Madison Square Garden represented Gregor's backyard. He had a perfect record, Gregor, of 9-0. Oh, and by the way, was an NCAA national champion. I mean, on paper, this is a hard night. Any way you want to look at, forget about on paper. Gregor Gillespie's a hard night out. But he's being given opportunity against a star. Kevin Lee has star power. Kevin Lee gave this opportunity, took the risk himself, walked out there. Had a wonderful night, but that's only something you can celebrate in hindsight. Going into it, there was a lot to risk. Should I add the fact that Kevin Lee not only had to change gyms, he had to leave states. He not only had to leave states, he had to leave the country because his coach had died, was no longer there. I mean, should I add all of the things going on in Kevin's life? Okay, so he gets away with one on Gregor. Now, when you go out and you're Kevin Lee, and you don't want to be a jerk, and you're asked to do something, and you want to be a team player, and you go ahead and do it. That's the right thing to do, but here's the good news. Here's the good news to all that risk. You don't have to do it again. You don't have to do it again for a meaningful period of time. You do not have to take on, as a star, as a former world title challenger, as a multiple-time main event participant, you do not have to go back and take on some stud who's nobody's heard of. You don't have to. You slip one of those in your career, and then you don't have to do it for a while. That's just the way that it works. Kevin is now interested in fighting a gentleman, Islam. He's interested in fighting Islam. By the way, I do apologize to Islam. I did not mean to be condescending, but it does help me to prove my point. People aren't terribly familiar with Islam. They wouldn't pick him out of a crowd. Now, his skills are outstanding. I believe his record to be undefeated. If he's ever lost, it hadn't been in front of me. In fact, if he's ever even had all that hard of a time, it hadn't been in front of me. So for Kevin to go and to take that fight or to pursue that fight, taking the fight is one thing. If that's what's offered and that's what's on the table, I get it. For him to pursue that fight, it's a head scratcher for me, particularly when you have two other things that work within 155 pounds. Okay, you have Justin Gaethje, who said, I'm going to wait in the batter's box. I'm going to get in shape. I'm going to be licensed, and I'm going to be ready to fill in for either Khabib or Tony. That's it. Well, when Justin's the only one to say it, he gets the spot. If only one guy applies for a job, guess what? It's his job. So he was running with that for a little bit, Gaethje was. And all of a sudden, Poirier steps up and says, not so fast. I'm going to take that spot. As a matter of fact, Justin, I'll see your willingness and I'll raise you co-main event spot, same card, you and I. Whoa. The problem that Dustin would have, and the good news for Team Gaethje, is Dustin versus Gaethje has already happened, as has Dustin versus Khabib. So that wouldn't be as likely or compelling as a match to make right away as sliding Justin in. But Justin still has competition. Just because I say it's not as compelling doesn't make it so. You now have somebody meeting you with resistance and bringing his own fan base and his own arguments and his own skills and his own record and his own former world champion to the table. Okay? But I do think that I'm right, but because of the parity, because we've already seen Dustin versus Khabib, because we've already seen Justin versus Dustin, I think it's the perfect opportunity for Kevin Lee to insert himself in this business. Kevin Lee, Dustin Poirier, fun fight. Nobody argues with me. Everybody signs off right now. The history of the promotion says if you have a lightweight championship as your main event, you feature another lightweight fight on the main card. You feature it in case all hell breaks loose in your main event. You at least have two guys that are already been in everybody's mind, that have already been promised to every ticket holder, and you slide one of them up. Makes good sense, but that's also what the history says, and you should study that. I think that a lot of people don't even know that policy. I think that Kevin Lee could also, not only Kevin Lee versus Dustin makes sense, I think that Kevin Lee versus Justin makes sense. It's fresh parity, it's fresh blood. It's a great spot on a huge card that could open up a world title fight. I think there's something there. And whether it comes about or not, I'm not even sure how serious Dustin was about it. He could have been dead serious. I'm not sure. But he still maintained and succeeded at his objective of getting his name out there and staying in everybody's mind. Making headlines, starting a what if, getting a response from people, starting a dialogue and a conversation that now is continuing even right here by yours truly. It worked. And if Kevin Lee, in his attempt to show his bravado and his toughness, wants to keep on going after these super hard fights, which Islam is, all respect. But he will miss the other piece of the game, which is having a dialogue and having a conversation and a discussion. As good as Islam is, and he is very good, by the way, he is very good. And people don't want to fed him, and Kevin Lee's willing to, and he's serious, and it's not an act, and he'll sign the contract today. Full respect to Kevin Lee. I just will tell you, I'm not sure Kevin knows quite where he fits in. Kevin is a bigger star than Kevin knows. Kevin has more fans than Kevin knows. More people want to see Kevin Lee than Kevin Lee knows want to see him. The competitor in him says, in my last 3, I've only lost 1, and therefore this is what I deserve. That's what the competitor in him says because he's an old school wrestler, and that's the way old school wrestling brackets would have played out. The computer would have spit it out, and you'd have gone into the Consti side, and now you're in the back room while the varsity's over here. That's the way it is, but Kevin Lee is not in that game anymore. He's not in a sport anymore for the most part. He is in a business. And he happens to be a sought-after piece of the business in a division that's on fire right now. That's very interesting with a lot of moving parts. I just would remind Kevin Lee, and I hope his manager grabs him and says these words to him, Kevin, of all these moving parts at 155, you're one of them.